Alright, first off here for the Cameron block, what we're going to do is, I think this is pretty obvious, hopefully you remember this much. New, we're going to do a standard IPT, your standard part file. And, come on. Should pause the recording while I'm doing this. And it eventually load you up here. I would always, when you start your drawing, pick the best view to draw it from that you can get the least amount of sketches. So I'm going to do just that simple little L-shaped block. It's on sheet 1 of 3, down in the bottom corner. So I'm going to go start. I'm going to start drawing it on this right-hand plane. It's on the YZ plane there. And if you don't remember this part, always try to draw around your origin. It's just a good habit of getting used to. You can place a drawing anywhere out there on the screen, but it's a good habit of putting it around your origin. Important step here is as I'm hovering there, you see all the perpendicular and parallel symbols on there. That's always, remember, you need to have those. If you don't have them appear now, you have to add them in later, and that's always just an extra step to do. This one down here on the bottom, that's somewhat of an important one. That's the one that's locking you in parallel to your origin. That's why it has that little dashed line on it. So it keeps you locked in on that that plane there. Now, just a little side note with this as you're doing it. So let's say you finish that, and then for some reason you delete out that drawing. That just got rid of that thing that's locking these in here at that specific angle. So sometimes when you're doing drawings and you're putting in other constraints, if you deleted out that line, you need to put back in that constraint that locks it back in there straight. Otherwise, when you're doing your drawing and dimensioning and constraining, your drawing will turn all askew and be weird in there, and you'll wonder why. Well, that's why, it's because you got rid of that constraint there. So that's kind of an important little tidbit to mention. Here, you can just start dimensioning. Either start by dimensioning or start by constraining. I usually eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I typically do start with an overall dimension, and this one is 1. So I'll put our one overall of 1 in there. And another one I didn't do a minute ago just as I was doing it. Whoa, not what I wanted there. Sorry about that. Is I typically try to put my dimensions in the same position what there are in the handout. That way it just makes it easier for me or for you when you're going back through there trying to edit drawings. If they're in the same position, you're not looking all over the place. So I usually try to just place my dimensions in the same position that they're shown on the handout. So all of those basic dimensions there, and then there's that little shape. Remember, what you're always looking for is that fully constrained drawing, and that is that dark blue color. So there's where we have to add in our horizontal and our vertical constraints, are the two that I usually go with here. And I think this is new from 2 years ago. But if you hover over top of it, notice it gives you that dashed line up and down. It's kind of hard to see on my screen. But when I get to the midpoint of that green dot, now it's going to slide this dashed line over to my origin. Versions before it didn't do that. I don't think it did that 2 versions ago. Seniors, do you remember that? Did it do that 2 versions ago? I don't think it did. I think that was new on last year's version. Did it have that 2 years ago? Okay, it must have been the year before then. But you click there and then on your origin, and then that makes that all fully dark blue, dimensions that nicely. Once again, just kind of as a cleanup, at the end, I try to pull that dimension back into position above there and back over there to have it kind of in the same orientation as my drawing. And that looks beautiful. I'm going to finish my sketch. I'm going to extrude. Again here, I always like to extrude both ways. I like to keep the part centered up on my X, Y, and Z planes, if possible. And I'm going to extrude that both way and 3 inches. And that has that part finished. Now, as far as materials go, I want you to add materials to this, but remember you have 2 different materials lists up here. If you don't remember the difference between those, this first one on this side, that's setting the material to have the properties of gold, the properties of glass, the properties of PET, plastic, lead, steel, whatever it may be. So that's the properties of it. This next one has a little picture by it, a little color wheel. This is setting in the look of it. So all this one does, and it has little pictures more so of what it looks like, all that's doing is setting the look of the material to that. not the actual physical properties of it. We don't do really any of this in here, but sometimes in your capstone you'll get to this, to where you're doing stress analysis and things like that on your parts. If you set it to aluminum or whatever you may set it to, or lead or whatever rubber you're going to be making out of, steel, it's going to actually take on the properties of those materials. You can also load up specific properties. It takes a little bit of doing. I never have actually done it, but I know it's possible, of loading up specific properties of a specialized, S7 steel or something like that, so it takes on those specific properties. It doesn't get that detailed here. But there you go. There, that part's done. When you save it, I always try to get in the habit of going save as, and saving it to a folder. That would be your CAD 3 folder. I said this one for your practice folder. You would make a Cameron block folder, and then save it in there as part 1, 2, 3, and part 4. I think I'm just going to save these over top of the other ones that I had here last quarter, and I'm just going to go save and replace that. Alright, so there was my first one. Alright, from there we're going to start on our next part. So we're going to go new again, new standard IPT. Looking at our next part, I'd probably start it from the right side plane also. It really doesn't matter much on this part. This is sheet 2 of 5 on your handout. On it, I draw a square box around my origin, dimension it from there to there at 1, and from there to there at 1 also, but I'm not going to make it 1. I'm going to make it match my other dimension because this is a square shape. And before I forget about it, I'm going to pull that one over to there. I'm going to center up horizontally and vertically. And that's got me a beautiful little block there. I'm going to go ahead and extrude that both directions at 3. And then just start a new sketch. I'm going to start my new sketch there on that front plane. I'm going to start that off with a couple of rectangles. First rectangle, I'm going to make sure that green dot appears so it locks to that corner, down and around to here. Here I want to be careful not to click on the origin or it's going to lock that into place and I won't be able to change it. So I'm just going to move it down to there. I'm going to make me my other one from that green dot down and around to there. On this one I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to use this collinear constraint and make this line collinear with this line. So what that, I did it automatically there, and I did that quickly, and I didn't even think about it. On this one, if I click there, pull this down and around, if I have the line show up in between those two, it automatically makes those collinear. So there, if I click there, I automatically did not do it that time. Oh well. The last time, if you have a dark line show up there, it does make those collinear automatically. So whether you get it to show up or not, there we go. So those two are collinear now. I'm going to put a width dimension on this one of 1. Width dimension of this one of the same 1. And height there at 0.5. So that's got that there looking beautiful. Finish my sketch. Extrude. Remember here, change to cut. And we're going to cut that block and that block at 0.5. And that's got that one done. Change it to some sort of a contrasting color. Sure, green, polished there. Love that. And save that as, in my same folder, as part 2. Alright, part 2 done. Alright, here on part 3. I'd probably draw part 3 for my front plane, so that XY plane there. On this, just draw the shape that you had there on the handout. So let's see here. Starting there, going over, up, back over, down, over there. Now here, notice as I draw my line to right there, I have that dark black line showing up. That will automatically make those collinear, which is a good thing. And over, and down, to there. Now here, if I wanted these to be collinear, I could come down to here and make sure it is collinear to that one. And on this one I do want that, so I'm going to go to there, back to there, back over to there. And actually here I'm going to go back just a couple steps here real quick. Here is somewhat of an important one. Sometimes when you're doing this one, some of my new freshmen do this. If I bring this one over and I accidentally get the collinear to show up here, it locks these lines in collinear to each other, and you don't want that. So you want to make sure you don't get that dark line showing up there, so those are not collinear. So sometimes locking those in collinear can kind of be a pain and a bad thing. All right, so from there, I'm going to put my overall dimension in first of 2.5. Going to add in the rest of my dimensions. And again, I just tried to dimension it like the handout. The handout, if it's done well, should have all the dimensions in needed, and you should be good to go just with the dimensions from the handout. If the handout is not done well, then that's where you have to maybe add in some more dimensions. But if it's done well, all your dimensions needed should be on it, and should make everything just right. Alright, overall of 1, and depth here of 0.5, and now I should just have to vertically and horizontally constrain this. And that should have that one. So there's that one finished up. Extrude, again, going both ways, and 1 inch, and that one's done. So it's some sort of amazing dirt. Ooh, dirt's kind of dark. Let's go indoor pool. Sure, loving that. Save as, part 3, yes. Beautiful. Alright, let's do our part 4. Oh. Alright, for this next one on part 4, I'm going to start drawing it on the top plane. Really doesn't matter which part of this one you draw first. I usually draw this portion of it first. Looks like kind of an elongated plus sign. Here I want to make sure I do line that one up with that black line going across there so it creates that collinear constraint. Same with here. I want that collinear constraint showing up. Same with there. I want that collinear showing up and that collinear there showing up. Oops. And why sometimes it does that, I don't always get, but it does. So there that shape is, but now I have a bunch of those collinears already showing up, so those are locked into place. So that makes that kind of nice. Start here with giving an overall dimension of 3.25. Dimension here of 1.25. There of 0.75. Overall here, 1. Whoa. And obviously, sometimes when it does that, you just got to grab a hold of it and drag it back in shape a little bit. Basically, I had a little bit too wide there, which was causing a little bit of issues. So overall there of 1. This one of, it looks like a 0.5. And that one of a 0.25. So that should be pretty close. Get my horizontal and vertical constraints in. Starts to turn blue there. And that should have that one done. I'm going to finish my sketch. Extrude both ways and 1 on that part. Oh no, I lied. That was the big part. Extrude both ways and 3 on that part. There we go. Now, once again, I'm going to start my sketch. This time I'm going to come over and click on my origin, open up my origin, hover over those different planes, go to my XZ plane. F7, remember, is that slice graphics thing that cuts it away so you can kind of see through it. And now I'm just going to draw my other part around there. So I'm going to come down and around, over to here, back up, back over. Here again, collinear showing up there is kind of nice. I'm going to dimension this at 2.5. I'm kind of blind, hardly can't see that, but 2.5 I believe is what that said. That one at 0.5. Oh, I put that on a different side than the other one. I should have put it up the top to match the book. And 1.5 there. Depth there of, oops, does not give the dimension that way, so I'll do it the same as the handout. Width there of 2. And here of 1.75. And then get my On this one, I can't do the centering up around the origin because it's actually not centered, but I do have a dimension that goes from there to there.